In the event of a post-asteroid apocalypse, where are the safest land masses in the world? Here is the detailed map of predicted land changes based on geological positioning. All post-polar shift predictions are based on the theories from Gordon Michael Scallion, Edgar Cayce, and others, and should not be construed as fact. The resulting flooding and tectonic upheaval could look something like this. Let's start with the North American continent, Canada. Parts of the Northwest region will be pushed in almost 200 miles. Regions in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and areas of Alberta will become the refugee survival center of Canada. Most migrations into the area will arrive from British Columbia and Alaska. The United States. As the North American plate buckles, the new islands of California will be created with almost 150 islands. The west coast will recede eastward towards Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. The Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway will join and continue through the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. All coastal areas from Maine to Florida will be taken over by water and pushed inland for miles. Mexico. Most coastal areas of Mexico will be inundated far inland. The California-Baja coast will ultimately become a series of islands. Much of the Yucatan Peninsula will be lost to the rising waters. Central America and the Caribbean. Central America will sink and will be reduced to a series of islands. Higher elevations will be considered safe. A new waterway will eventually develop from the Bay of Honduras to Salinas, Ecuador. The Panama Canal will ultimately become cut off with no access. Africa. Africa will ultimately be divided into 3 parts. The Nile will widen significantly. A brand new waterway will split the entire area from the Mediterranean Sea towards Gabon. As the Red Sea enlarges, Cairo will ultimately disappear into the sea along with the Great Pyramids. The majority of Madagascar will also be taken by the sea. Asia. This heavily seismic region will have the most severe and dramatic changes. Land will be inundated from the Philippines to Japan and north to the Bering Sea. As the Pacific plates shift its position, the islands of Japan will eventually sink, leaving only a few small islands. Taiwan and most of Korea will be completely lost to the sea. The entire coastal region of China will be pushed inland hundreds of miles. Indonesia will break up, however some islands will remain and new land will emerge. The Philippines will disappear completely beneath the sea. Asia will lose a significant amount of its land mass through these dramatic changes. However, entirely new land will eventually rise. Australia. Australia will lose nearly 25% of its land due to coastal flooding. The Gibson Desert will eventually become fertile farming land. Entirely new communities will develop between the Great Sandy and Simpson Desert, and new refugee settlements will be created in Queensland. New land will also be created off the coast. New Zealand. New Zealand will grow in size significantly and will once again join the land of old Australia. New Zealand will quickly become the promised land and ultimately one of the most migrated areas in the entire world. Europe. Europe will experience the fastest and most serious earth changes. Most of northern Europe will sink beneath the sea as the tectonic plate underneath collapses. Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark will all disappear and ultimately create hundreds of small islands. Most of the United Kingdom from Scotland to the English Channel will disappear beneath the sea. Several small islands will remain. Major cities like London and Birmingham will be among the remaining islands. Much of Ireland will disappear beneath the sea except for the higher ground areas. Russia. Russia will be separated from Europe by an entirely new sea when the Caspian and Baltic Seas combine. The Black Sea will merge with the North Sea as well, leaving Bulgaria and Romania completely underwater. Much of Central Europe will sink, and most of the land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Baltic Sea will be completely lost underwater. Most of France will be underwater, leaving an island in the surrounding area of Paris. A completely new waterway will then separate Switzerland from France, creating a line from Geneva to Zurich. Italy will be entirely divided by water. Venice, Naples, and Rome will sink below the rising sea. Higher elevations will be created as new islands. New lands will rise from Sicily to Sardinia. If cataclysmic earth changes were to occur, much of human history will be lost to the sea, leaving our ancestors to rediscover lost knowledge and